2020. In our lead stories nationally, Nevis Island Administration Treasury Building to officially open on January 30th, 2020. And should citizens be concerned over traveling using the old St. Kitts and Nevis passport that does not contain their place of birth? Regionally, Jamaica government denies the case of coronavirus but issues advisory against the travel to and from China. Internationally, international countries to evacuate citizens from Wuhan, China. And in sports, 2020 World Athletics Indoor Championship postponed in China. We will have the details to these and other stories after this short break.
Another look.
Different from how you've seen it before.
Another look.
Takes an in-depth look into business, politics, science, technology, religion, and more.
Another look.
Featuring documentaries from the BBC, regional features, and local ones too.
Another look.
Every Monday at 3 p.m. on the Eastern Caribbean's powerhouse, Vaughan.
Welcome back and on to our national news segment. A new edifice to house the Treasury Department here in Nevis will officially open tomorrow, Thursday, 30th January at 3:30 p.m. The new building will also house the Inland Revenue Department, IRD, and the Information Technology Department of the Nevis Island Administration, the NIA. Some years ago, an early morning fire gutted the previous structure that housed the above-mentioned departments, as well as the Philatelic Bureau. Thus, the NIA had to take a decision to rebuild the facility. Demolition work on the project site commenced on August 2017, but the reconstruction project began in October 2017 and was earmarked for completion between 18 and 24 months. Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Mark Brantley.
I want to publicly commend the Honorable Vance Emery, former Premier, and his Permanent Secretary, now my Permanent Secretary, Mr. Colin Dore, because they championed the redevelopment of that area. And they insisted that a new building should emerge from the ashes. And that new Treasury building has now emerged. And after there's been a lot of chatter, we're finally ready to open it. And so I'm advised that the Treasury building will be open.
Meanwhile, the NIA embarked on an upgrade on Lower Happy Hill Drive to uplift the area in which the new building is situated.
We're doing some additional infrastructure work there. I think that the public would realize that the roads are blocked because Public Works is doing the necessary paving. And we are toying with the idea of making that area in front of the Treasury pedestrian traffic only. So we're working on that, and we are hopeful that we'll get the support of the public. The idea there really is to create, and we think we have created, a landmark structure in the heart of Charlestown.
That is Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Mark Brantley. In 2013, the St. Kitts and Nevis passports without a place of birth were cancelled and recalled by the government. This came as a result of other countries concerned that citizens, that individuals who held the passport could be potentially traveling for ill reasons and did not want to disclose their place of birth. Since then, multiple announcements have been issued by the government of St. Kitts and Nevis recalling all of those passports. A grace period had also been allowed for individuals to have the passports changed free of cost. However, on the latest edition of the Let's Talk program on January 28, 2020, the Honorable Spencer Brand elaborated on a case whereby a group of individuals traveled and encountered some difficulties regarding their passport.
Recently, a group of Nevisians left Nevis to travel overseas for a very auspicious occasion. And one member of that delegation traveled on a passport that was issued in 2013. It so happened that on entering the territory where their journey would have taken them, this particular individual was told that this passport was a stolen passport, and as a result, he was not allowed to enter into the country. The individual, however, had a very uncomfortable evening and was scheduled to be deported back to from whence they came. The individual were able to reach out to some authorities back here in the Federation and the matter was able to be sorted.
That is the Honorable Spencer Brand. What does this mean for persons in and outside of the Federation that have not yet changed their passports? Will any person who has not yet changed their passport encounter issues while traveling? The VON Newsline spoke to Permanent Secretary of National Security, Mr. Osmond Petty, who gave this response.
Let me say that between the 14th of the previous administration, there was a recall. After the government changed in 2015, we extended that recall until around 2017 May. We wrote to all of the addresses that we had on file. We sent out to all our embassies overseas, and we publicized as much as possible the recall of those passports, and they would have been done at no cost. At this time, we have no plans to do anything further. Subsequent to May 2017, we deactivated all of the passports which were not returned up to that point.
Also on the Let's Talk program, a caller expressed concerns over those who relinquished their passports late, having to pay all over again for a new one, particularly those a part of the CBI program. When asked if CBI passport holders will be granted any further amnesty, this was Mr. Petty's response.
If they show up at airports here in St. Kitts or anywhere with the old passport without place of birth, they cannot travel on them, because it's no longer valid for travel. So if, for instance, somebody shows up at the airport in Bastia or Charlestown, Nevis, Vancouver Airport with a passport with no place of birth, they cannot leave the country on that passport because it's no longer valid for travel. It will show up in the system as deactivated.
That is Permanent Secretary of National Security, Mr. Osmond Petty. As part of a multi-hazard campaign, the Navy's Disaster Management Department will today, Wednesday 29th January, be holding a panel discussion on natural disasters at the Charleston Wesleyan Memorial Church at 7 p.m. This comes following a number of frequent earthquakes occurring in the Caribbean for the past 2 months. The main area of focus for the discussion will be earthquakes. Senior Communications Officer at the Navy's Disaster Management Department, Mr. Jack Ngumba, spoke to the VON Newsline about the event.
The key aspect of the multi-hazard campaign, it touches 11 natural hazards. Even though earthquake would be the key focus, you can't talk about earthquake without thinking of tsunami, especially when it's of a certain magnitude. And more so, the discussion about earthquake will deal with the holistic aspect of disaster management, where persons will understand incident command system, the role of various government agencies, and also their own responsibilities on safety. So it's more of a holistic safety discussion with earthquake as a focus.
Other topics that will be discussed include earthquake awareness, building retrofitting, search and rescue, and impact on agriculture and emergency shelters. The communications officer appealed for persons to go out and be a part of the discussions, noting that the event will be of benefit to all.
We encourage the general public to partake in such discussions, considering the fact that seismic activity have really become rampant from December till now. It's so noticeable. What we aim is for participants or the audience to be aware of what to do before, during, and after an earthquake, and in terms of their safety, for them to know how to handle their home structures. Those that need to retrofit, it will be wiser for them to get insight, especially from panelists who will be talking in that direction.
That is Mr. Jack Ngumba. The most recent earthquake hit between Jamaica and Cayman Islands and Cuba at a depth of 10 kilometers or 6.2 miles on Tuesday 28th January. Following the tremor, warnings were quickly issued by the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, PTWC, which stated hazardous tsunami waves are possible for coasts located within 300 kilometers or 186 miles of the earthquake's epicenter, and included parts of Belize, Cuba, Honduras, Mexico, the Cayman Islands, and Jamaica, it said. And in more national news,
the Douglas Labour has shown that it just can't manage money. Their unfunded and costed promises would plunge St. Kitts and Nevis back into crippling debt. Labour's approach is a danger to our economy and a danger to the future of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and our people must reject this dangerous approach.
That's Prime Minister and leader of the People's Labour Party, Dr. the Honourable Timothy Harris. At the time, he was speaking in reference to the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party SKNLP. Recently, the party's leader, Dr. the Honourable Denzel Douglas, said that since the party's loss in the general elections of 2015, the entity has had time to consider the errors it made prior to its defeat. While at the same time, he named a few initiatives that the next Gen SKN plans to put in place if elected back into office. These include the medicinal marijuana industry, resuscitation of the CBI program, and the redevelopment of the enclave sector. However, he criticized the party's plan.
During the past weeks, the Douglas Labour Party announced a series of promises. The actions prove yet again that old Labour has not changed. They are still the same old party with the same old policies that will lead to the same high levels of debt and the bankruptcy of our country that took us to the IMF in 2011. The desperate Labour leaders are peddling promises they know they simply cannot pay for. Some have noted that they had 20 long years to do the very things they are now promising to do. Why didn't they do them then, rather to come now in an act of desperation, hoping to fool our people?
That is Prime Minister Dr. the Honourable Timothy Harris. As the Nevis Reformation Party, the NRP, announced its candidate to replace retired politician veteran Joseph Parry in the person of Mrs. Cleon Stapleton Simmons, leader of the party, Mr. Roberto Hector, has explained why the party has chosen a female to represent them in the St. Thomas's constituency. Equality and equal rights for women, you say? The party's leader explained that women play an important role in the political landscape here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis.
If you look back at the history of the Nevis Reformation Party, you would realize that we have always introduced women. In fact, in the politics of Nevis here, we have had representatives serving us at the highest level. I am sure you remember the Honorable Berlin Clark of blessed memory. She would have served, and perhaps I think would have been one of the first introduced by the Nevis Reformation Party. It is thereafter that other parties would have followed.
Mr. Hector explained that the time has come for more women to be incorporated into the political arena.
We have always embraced women, and I believe too that the time has come where throughout the world they should be considered for elective politics. I believe the contribution that women have made within the society can only be honored if we give them that opportunity to serve us at the highest level. I believe in some respects we are a little behind because there are other countries that have boasted of our female representatives at the highest level, and it would be nice if Nevisians would also embrace that quality.
That is Mr. Roberto Hector. The NRP selection comes months after a number of individuals and organizations here in Nevis have been advocating for women to be given the opportunity to play a role in the island's politics. This also comes as there has been a worldwide advocacy for a number of organizations for equality for women. And finally, in our national news segment, the Nevis Tourism Authority has a new Chief Executive Officer, CEO, in the person of Ms. Jadine Yard. The announcement was made by Premier of Nevis, the Honourable Mark Brantley, at his first press conference for 2020 on Tuesday, 28th January 2020. The new female CEO was selected from over a field of 40 applicants and comes to the post with a number of qualifications and experience.
She is American-born and has Barbadian and Grenadian citizenship. She has lived in the United States, in Boston and New York, for the majority of her life, before moving to Barbados and working in tourism, marketing, and entertainment She has been a consultant in both Barbados and Grenada. She has worked with the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc. and has been involved in the development of Limitless Concierge Service, which is a Barbadian Grenadian-based concierge service. She has over 10 years' experience in marketing, tourism, and entertainment. She holds a BSc in marketing, and we feel that she brings to the table a creative vision for the future of Nevis's tourism industry, an analytic tourism outlook, a strong digital marketing mindset, and a clear understanding of how important a business digital footprint is.
The Premier also explained that despite the political chatter that surrounds Ms. Yard being chosen to the position, that the process was fair and that the decision was made by the authorities board. He further welcomed Ms. Yard as she replaces Mr. Greg Phillip, whom Mr. Brantley also thanked for the work he did with the authority.
Ms. Yard replaces Mr. Greg Phillip. Mr. Phillip, as you recall, was the CEO and has resigned, and we were without a CEO for a while, but we want to thank Mr. Phillip for his service. I believe he would have been there since about 2013. He had a long run, and thank him for his contribution. And we also would want to thank Mr. Devon Liebert, who acted as CEO as the search took place. I believe that Mr. Liebert was also one of the contenders for CEO, but the board, having done their analysis, made their recommendations as I have indicated. And so I would want to thank Mr. Liebert for his interim role, thank Mr. Phillip, and welcome Ms. Yard, and pray that we get the results that we're looking for in relation to tourism and tourism development.
That is the Honorable Mark Brantley. And that concludes our national news segment. You can visit our website at www.vaughanradio.com, or you can visit our social media page on Facebook at Vaughan Radio and also our YouTube channel at Vaughan Radio for these and other stories. News from across the region comes up next.
We know you have your personal as well as your business needs, and we're here to help. Our knowledgeable staff will work with you to help you achieve the financial success that you or your company needs in a competitive market. We offer solutions to make your banking experience easier, like our savings and checking accounts. Be sure to ask about our youth savers accounts and our Bank of Nevis Go Club. We offer a wide range of personal loans, including mortgage, land, student, auto, and consumer loans. Have access to your funds instantly with our BeOnline internet banking and our debit and credit cards. We make international banking and investing easy. How's your business? Give it the leverage it really needs by letting the Bank of Nevis assist you with all the necessary funding for all your business expenses. It's that easy. What are you waiting for? The Bank of Nevis Limited, improving the quality of life.
Like us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/The Bank of Nevis.
Welcome back and on to our regional news segment. In news out of Jamaica, health authorities have sought to assure Jamaicans that there is no case of the deadly new coronavirus at the University Hospital of the West Indies, UHWI. There have been reports that the hospital's accident and emergency department was on partial shutdown as personnel treated a suspected case of the coronavirus that has left more than 130 people dead in China. However, at a press conference yesterday, that is Tuesday, 28th January, Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton said there was no truth to the claim that there was such a case. Medical Chief of Staff at the UHWI, Dr. Carl Bruce, further explained that a patient who recently traveled to China and had flu symptoms was transferred to the UHWI that is from another hospital, and out of an abundance of caution was isolated. However, he said the patient does not meet the case definition for the coronavirus. Meantime, Minister Tufton disclosed that a travel advisory was being issued for travel between Jamaica and China. And in news out of Barbados, although the 6-month Atlantic hurricane season won't officially begin until June 1st, government is not leaving anything to chance and has started its preparations. Minister of Home Affairs Edmund Hisken has urged all residents to follow suit with their personal plans and those for their communities in an effort to strengthen the island's resilience to natural hazards. He said government was already seeking to ensure that the island had greater water and energy capacity post-disaster and that vehicles were available to respond to those who might be affected. And finally, in our regional news segment, in news out of Trinidad, President of the Public Services Association, PSA, Watson Duke, no longer has a sedition charge hanging over his head, at least for now. The case against him, which stemmed from statements he made in November 2018 about proposed layoffs at 3 public utility companies, was discontinued by Chief Magistrate Maria Busby Earl Caddle yesterday on the basis of a High Court ruling as part of the Sedition Act under which he was charged were unconstitutional. The development came a week after Duke's attorneys had applied for the dismissal based on the January 13th ruling by Justice Frank C. Prasad, which the state has appealed. The preliminary hearing on a suspension of Justice Prasad's, that is C. Prasad's ruling, is set for February 3rd. And that's it for regional news. International news comes up next as the VON Major News Report continues. Welcome back and on to our international news segment. Hundreds of foreign nationals are being evacuated from Wuhan, the center of China's coronavirus outbreak, as more deaths and cases are confirmed. Australia plans to quarantine its evacuees on Christmas Island, 2,000 kilometers from the mainland. Japan, the US, and the EU are also repatriating their citizens. British Airways has suspended all flights to and from the mainland China as the UK's Foreign Office warned against all but essential travel there. The BBC's Steve McDonnell reports.
The authorities have said that anybody coming back from Hubei province should wait for 2 weeks before going back to their workplace. So that's what I'm doing, like everybody else who comes back from Hubei. It's interesting coming back into Beijing because even though it's normally quiet here at this time of year anyway, it's especially quiet now. You know, you move around the streets in Beijing, there's barely see another person. Shops are closed. People are afraid to be coming out into the streets for fear of contracting the coronavirus. And this is happening right across China.
And the Syrian army says it has recaptured the strategic town of Marat al-Numan in Idlib province, the opposition's last stronghold. State media reported that troops had liberated the town after inflicting heavy losses on jihadist fighters. A monitoring group earlier said the opposition had withdrawn. The BBC's Martin Patience reports.
For weeks there has been intense fighting between the rebels and the Syrian government, backed by Russia and Iran, with tens of thousands of civilians fleeing the violence. But now reports say Damascus has retaken Marat al-Numan after opposition fighters, most of whom are jihadists, withdrew from the town. Marat al-Numan sits on a highway connecting the capital Damascus to the second city of Aleppo and has long been a priority for the Syrian regime. The town lies in the south of Idlib, an area which remains the last opposition stronghold in the country.
And finally, in our international news segment, the remains of all the victims who were aboard the ill-fated helicopter that went down Sunday, killing Kobe Bryant and 8 others, have been recovered from the crash site in Calabasas, California, according to officials. 3 of the bodies were recovered from the helicopter wreckage Sunday afternoon, and the remaining victims were located and removed from the crash site on Monday, the Los Angeles County Department of Medical Examiner coroner announced. Investigators are still working on identifying all of the victims, according to the coroner's office. Bryant, 41, his 13-year-old daughter Gianna, and 7 others were on the Sikorsky S-76B aircraft when it left Orange County Sunday and crashed on a steep hillside in Calabasas just before 10 a.m. And that's it for international news. The latest sporting news comes up next.
TDC Business Center and City Drugstore Nevis, your one-stop shop for all your school supply needs. Get bundle savings on backpack and computer packages, but save 20% off all back-to-school materials and printers. Back-to-school shopping is made easy at TDC Business Center and City Drugstore Nevis. See stores for details.
Welcome back on to our sporting news segment. In athletics news, the 2020 World Athletics Indoor Championship in Nanjing had been postponed because of fears over the spread of the coronavirus in China. The championships were to be held from the 13th to the 15th of March, but governing body World Athletics pushed those back 12 months. World Athletics sought advice from the World Health Organization and turned down offers to host from other countries. The coronavirus has killed more than 130 people in China and has spread to 16 countries globally. Around 6,000 people in all have been infected by the virus, for which there is no specific cure or vaccine. The epicenter of the outbreak is the Chinese city of Wuhan, around 370 miles from Nanjing. In cricket news, England fast bowler Jofra Archer has been ruled out of the 3-match T20 series against South Africa next month because of an elbow injury. The 24-year-old has returned to England after the 3-1 Test series win against the Porteous, in which he played the first match but missed the next 3. Archer will now focus on recovering from soreness in his right elbow. He will be replaced by Shakib Mahmood, who will remain in South Africa after the 3-match one-day series. The ODIs take place on the 4th, 7th and 9th of February before 3 T20s on the 12th, 14th and 18th of February. Finally, in our sporting news segment, in some tennis news, top seed Rafael Nadal was denied a place in the Australian Open semi-finals as Austria's Dominic Thiem rattled the Spaniard with a powerful display to win a 4-set thriller. 5th seed Thiem won 7-6, 7-3, 7-6, 7-4, 4-6, 7-6, 8-6 at Melbourne Park. The 26-year-old, beaten by Nadal in the past 2 French Open finals, missed 2 match points before taking a third to win in 4 hours and 10 minutes. And that's the latest sporting news. The latest weather forecast comes up next. Tonight, mainly fair conditions. Tomorrow, mainly dry and sunny. The winds are east-southeast, 7 to 19 kilometers per hour, or 4 to 10 knots, and becoming light and variable or calm overnight. Seas 1.2 meters or 4 feet. Your sunrise for tomorrow will be at 6:43 a.m. And that's how we wrap up the major news package for today, Tuesday, that is Wednesday, 29th January 2020. Before we go, let's take a look at the headlines once again. Nationally, the Nevis Island Administration Treasury Building to officially open on January 30th, 2020. And should citizens be concerned over traveling with the old St. Kitts and Nevis passport that does not contain their place of birth? Regionally, Jamaican government denies case of coronavirus but issues advisory against travel to and from China. Internationally, international countries to evacuate citizens from Wuhan, China. And in sporting news, 2020 World Athletics Indoor Championship postponed in China. On behalf of the rest of the news team, I am Marvin Ross, and I'm wishing you a pleasant evening.